Welcome back. It is all systems go for the ANC National Policy Conference. The Progressive Youth Alliance is calling on the party to intensify youth mobilization and job creation. Well, I'm catching up with the ANC National Youth Task Team's Nongcaba Mhlauli, who joins me in studio. Nongcaba, let's start with a pressing matter before we get to the policy issues. I've read through your statement. There are a number of aspects which I found interesting and intriguing. But we can't even get to that point without starting with the issue of the non-payment of salaries for ANC staffers. And you also raise it in your statement. And you'll be taking part in a picket, I believe.
Yes, indeed, Tulas, we have raised the issue internally as well in the party. In fact, on Monday, we raised the matter in the working committee of the ANC and in previous NEC meetings as well. And we do believe that we really are at a point whereby it is inexcusable to have had staff members not paid for 2 months. It was reported on Monday that staff would have been paid the next day, which would have been, on Tuesday, that staff would have been paid the next day, which would have been yesterday. And we got information today that some payment was made today, though there's still outstanding previous salaries. I think the salaries that came in today were those of June, and that staff is still waiting for their salaries for July. But we believe that the situation is completely untenable. It's completely unacceptable. And we ourselves, we have staff that are working for the Youth League, young people who've not been able to pay their rents, who've not been able to pay school fees, who have not been able to buy food, who are working right now only because they love the ANC, but any other worker would not have come to work under the conditions that they've come to, that they are currently under. So we will be participating in solidarity with the staff members tomorrow as they'll be picketing outside of Nasrec.
I read from that, Nongcaba, that you are at a point where, as the PYA, believe that the reasons, let me call them reasons, I don't know what you will call them, that are being given for why this keeps happening are not good enough. The main reason being that donations have dried up since the introduction of the Political Party Funding Act. People want anonymity, they don't want to be known. Your participation and the level of frustration you express in the statement suggests to me that you believe that not to be good enough.
I think firstly, it's a complete collapse of logic to say that we don't have money to pay staff for 2 months, yet we are spending lots of money with conferencing. I mean, had we known that there was this crisis, we would have opted, for an example, and proposed that let's have a hybrid national policy conference. I mean, just the money to have paid the venue for the NPC could have paid half of the salaries that are on the books of the ANC. And as we're saying that it notwithstanding the issues around the the party funding bill, of which it was an ANC-sponsored bill. There's currently, discussions around amending the regulations and so on and so forth. But there are also decisions that we make, and to make a decision of having a physical conference that will cost you money that you don't have while you haven't paid your staff, to us is actually quite problematic in logic and quite, bizarre to say the least.
Yeah. All right, let's get to the policy issues that you are passionate about, Nongcaba. I know that the issue around organizational renewal is something that you feel quite strongly about. For those who are not schooled in ANC parlance, organizational renewal speaks to, what kind of an ANC do we have now in the global and domestic situation and all the issues that we need to be dealing with. What are some of your key proposals? I saw one that talks about 50% of NEC members should not be available for whoever is the president to appoint into the national executive.
Yes, indeed. You'll remember that it's one of the discussions that have been coming along for quite some time. And we believe that if you are to say that you are serious about one organizational renewal, but also having the checks and balances between party and state. You do need to have a line at which some of those who are in the state report to those who are in the party, and you have that level of accountability. I mean, right now, if you make an example, you will find a minister who chairs a cluster in government, also chairs the subcommittee in the ANC. Then who's reporting to who? Who's monitoring and evaluating who? You know, where then do you have that, you know, that monitoring mechanism to say that, but comrade, as a deployee in government, we believe that you are not implementing policy A, B, and C of the ANC. That's one. The second thing, and that we, again, the second thing that we are quite passionate about is youth representation and structures of the ANC. Right now, having young people in structures of the ANC is really dependent on the levels of consciousness of those who are voting. And I think that we've seen in the last couple of conferences that we've had and the outcomes of those, that we do have a crisis of consciousness, both in our membership as well in our leadership. And we are saying that as part of that, it's not a technical, just a quota system, but we're saying that we want at least 40% youth representation in all structures of the ANC, starting with your National Executive Committee. And we're saying that unless if you write it in law, it's not going to happen. We've seen previously where the ANC would say, you know, 25% of youth representation. Yeah. And then when you hold them to that, they're like, no, it's a guideline, it's not a law. And we are now saying that we want youth representation to be part of what is within the constitution of the organization, to say that young people must form part of all elected structures as part of the makeup of that particular structure.
Completely out of time, but in your statement, there's a word that struck me, a phrase that struck me. You described the economy as having hit a brick wall. Yeah. That's pretty grim, coming from young people within the ANC. And among the many prescriptions, and you'll tell me, you talk to property relations, but also talk to the issue of energy.
Yes.
Do you believe that there's a move to privatize energy generation in this country, and that's a bad idea as far as you are concerned?
We believe that it's a completely bad idea. Let me make you one quick example. If you look at a small town, there's a small town from my home province called Kuruman, and you say to Kuruman, which makes 70 cents, which makes 70 cents on every rand, right, from the sale of electricity to all of the mines around the area, and you say to them, we are now giving all of those mines means to generate their own electricity and get off the grid. It actually means that you're collapsing that whole town, you're collapsing the entire economy of the town, and you're collapsing the ability of the municipality to subsidize the indigent. And we believe that beyond it's not a clear-cut issue of getting off the grid, but when people who subsidize the indigent get off the grid and generate their own electricity, you then have a situation whereby an old, poor person in Kuruman can't be able to afford their own electricity because the municipality can no longer provide it as a result of what we are saying that we are introducing as these news
So I imagine you'll be tackling the president on all these matters, because the horse has bolted. I mean, the embedded generation licensing cap threshold has been removed altogether.
And we find that to be quite problematic, and it's going to be one of the things that we are going to be raising, because we do believe that in our efforts to resolve the energy crisis, we are actually affecting the poorest of the poorest, the worst. And I think those who are already at the receiving end of the energy crisis will be worse off with the current proposals on the table. And those are some of the things that we'll be putting forward.
All right, I've got to leave it there. Thank you for coming through. That's the ANC Youth Task Team, the national convener, Nongaba Mhlauli, there, just fleshing out and giving us a sense of some of the debates that will be raging, especially in the breakaway sessions once the plenary sessions have taken place in Hall 6 here at the Nasrec Expo Center.